Okay, Bob, we're live.
You say we're good, or hold on?
We're live. You can go ahead and start.
Okay. I'd like to call the July 6, 2020 meeting of the Board of Directors of the Livermore Amador Valley Transit Authority to order. And then I would, in usual practice, because of its awkwardness, we'll dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance, but we can all think about it. And so at this point, I'd like to have a roll call.
Okay, Director Scott Haggerty.
Here.
Director Melissa Hernandez.
Here.
Director David Howard.
Here.
Director Carla Brown.
Here.
Vice Chair Jerry Penton.
Here.
Director Bob Coomber.
Here.
Chair Bob Warner.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. So I'd like at this time open the meeting to the members of the public. Do we have any one present that would like to comment?
You have one person. I'm going to go ahead and allow them to talk.
Okay.
Hi everyone, this is Stephen Dunbar. Probably recently received an email from me. Some of you are smiling. Just wanted to say hi. I respect all the work you're doing. This is more of a I gave you guys a big list of ideas to think about. It's nothing that has to happen like right now, but some of the things could happen a lot sooner than others. Like I said, you have a bunch of planning things happening. You have ValueLink and short and long range transit plans happening. So I'm hopeful you'll look at a couple of the suggestions that I had in the email and put them in there. And you know, there's a lot of change coming to the transit world. I know it, you know it. And we're going to try to keep a very useful service to the public and increase its usefulness even in this time of big change. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, and I would just point out that we can't take any action on your items, but we may discuss it at matters initiated later. Any other members of the public who want to comment? So,
I don't see any. Actually, there's one other person. One moment.
okay.
Herb, go ahead.
Hey guys, I'm just trying to get in here. So I just wanted to say hello, and I'll get the report for next month during next month's meeting.
Okay, we'll look forward to it and flow back. So with that, we'll close the public forum.
Move consent.
Jennifer, was there a second email?
Pardon?
Was there a second email?
Oh, there could be.
That is correct. There was another one that came in. Do you have that, Bob?
I don't have, can you read that for us? I don't have it in front of me.
Let me, bear with me for just a minute.
Jennifer, didn't you post the email?
I sent it out via email to you.
Isn't that enough?
I don't know. Legal counsel, Michael Conran.
I think it at least be acknowledged who sent it and what the general context was. Some agencies have been reading them in full. I don't think you need to do that, but perhaps you could just say who it's from and kind of summarize it. I'd be happy to do that if you'd like.
That would be great if you could do that.
Okay, so
If some of the other I've been in, what we do is if you come in early enough that we've all had a chance to read it, then we just acknowledge and just say that. But I think your idea of just say who it's from and the general topic, and that would be sufficient.
right. So this is from Sue Compton, who's the CEO of Access Community Health, which is located on West Las Positas Boulevard in Pleasanton. And she's noting that they're a community health center and that they have a Wheels bus stop located adjacent to their facility. They're appreciated the ease of access and they are just emphasizing the the value of Wheels Route 14 in terms of providing access to their facility.
Just as a quick follow-up, Chair, that agenda item might be related to agenda item D on your consent calendar, where we're talking about, where we have Route 14 in that Cycle 6 Lifeline Transportation Program funding before you for consideration.
Okay, and we'll just say that's pertinent for that.
Right out of the way.
Okay, thank you. So
Move
with,
consent.
pardon? So with that, I'd like to close
Consent.
public comment. And now we're on to the consent agenda. Any items that anyone would like to pull for discussion, or is there a motion for the group?
Move consent.
Second.
Second.
Okay, moved by Scott Haggerty and seconded by David Howard. So any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, any objections to the motion?
Roll call vote.
Oh, right, so I'm sorry, roll call. Okay, thank you.
Scott Haggerty,
Yes.
Melissa Hernandez,
Yes.
David Halbert,
Yes.
Carla Brown,
Yes.
Terry Penton,
Yes.
Bob Coomber,
Yes.
Bob Warner.
Yes. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. On to item 5, Executive Director's Report.
Okay, well, listen, good afternoon. In your packet, you have the Executive Director's Report. I think most of these things we talked about at length in the Project and Services Committee meeting, and I'm sure you've all had a chance to review. We do have some updates on the agenda today in regard to some of these items, such as the Atlantis facility over at the Oaks Business Park, but I've also put a comprehensive update, if you will, for the Valley Link project. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions? All right, that closes the Executive Director's Report. We go item 6, the Atlantis Transit Facility Schematic Design.
Hi, good afternoon. So at the June Project and Services Committee meeting, staff along with the 2 consulting firms assisting with the zero emission bus study and the planning and design of the the Atlantis facility provide updates on the two projects. The ZEP study was an informational items, whereas the Atlantis project was an action item. And although the committee supported staff recommendation to proceed with the second phase of the Atlantis project, there were several comments regarding the layout of the building as well as timeline of the 2 projects. Staff has invited Mike Mowry from Kimley Horn back today to provide a brief update on the project to the full board and address the committee members' comment regarding the layout. Additionally, staff has also put together an overlapping timeline for the 2 projects, and we'll go over at the end of Mike's presentation. So with that, take away, Mike.
Good afternoon, Chairman Warner and directors. I will provide a shorter presentation than I did for the committee meeting about 2 weeks ago. Certainly, if there's any follow-up questions, let me know. But I know a number of you have seen the work during the conceptual phase in detail, and so I won't go over all those items again. Let me share my screen. Okay. And I had your agenda up first. So again, my name is Mike Mowry. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. I think it's okay now. My name is Mike Mowry from Kimley Horn Associates.
Excuse me, if you are not speaking, if you go on mute, that would be helpful.
My name is Mike Mowry from Kimley Horn Associates. I'm the project manager for this conceptual phase, moving into schematic design phase of the LAFTA Atlantis Court Transit Facility project. I'm a vice president with our company and I've been with Kimley Horn about 20 years, leading our transportation and development teams here in the Bay Area. The Atlantis Court site, again, is a property that LAFTA obtained a number of years ago and has had partial development completed on it. If I go to just a general mapping, you can see just off of Isabel Avenue, again in the Oaks Business Park, between some now built warehousing, which wasn't completely built during acquisition of the site. The red highlighted area is the overall property owned, and between the initial study of the project, which was completed back in 2008, part of the project or the site area has been developed. There is a paved facility with a fueling and wash station, which I'm highlighting on my screen, which takes up approximately the middle third of the site. Overall, the site area owned is a little over 9 acres, so it's a pretty large site for the multi-use facility that I'll present to you today. Just as a point of reference of the architecture that is out there, so a number of the warehousing have been built recently or completed recently, and then some have been out there for a little over a decade. But what you're seeing is, I guess I would say, kind of the current state of a lot of warehousing facilities, where you are starting to see some glass work and some blocking of windows and offsets of the structures rather than just a sheer wall for an older warehousing facility that you'd like to see. So starting to see some architectural interest, and I'm sure the board members from the city of Livermore had input on that as these sites were developed. The Atlantis site that we're discussing today, this street view image is taken along Discovery Drive, and just in the right edge of the image is the corner of the LAFTA owned property. So now north is actually to our left in this building. It just fits better as we look at the overall site layout. And generally what the project is looking to do is pick up where the previous work left off, looking at a combined operations and administration building on the north third of the site, accessed from Discovery Drive, and then a new maintenance building on the southern half of the project, which would be accessed from Atlantis Court. Both of these access locations exist today, although obviously the Discovery Drive access, while the driveway exists, it goes to a greenfield at this time. Sorry, let me go back to the site real quick. Just to summarize, the parking for the facility, for the overall facility for both the operators of the buses as well as the staffing of the operations and administration building would be in this parking field adjacent to the admin and administration building. Again, retaining the middle third of the site generally, although there might be some conforming areas where we cut into the existing concrete paving. And then there'll be both internal uses for maintenance as well as staging areas for the buses and other facility, LAFTA, non-revenue vehicles and so on outside of that building. Looking at the admin and operations building first, I'd say the most notable difference to the design from where it was left in 2008 is really better orienting the uses inside the space. There was quite a bit of what I'd call co-mingling of the operator spaces and the LAFTA administration spaces. And so the old design had those two uses on both sides of the building. And there was really an interest, since the operator does operate relatively independently and has a lot of training spaces and staff supervisors for those operations, to have them on one side of the building and then for LAFTA staff to be on the other side. The other main change is that the building before was seen as two-story, which is now the operations side, which is the west side of the building. Apologies, north is up in this drawing. And the LAFTA administration, now 2 stories, before one story was contemplated, is now on the east side of the building. The other main changes I would note is we have upsized the boardroom, and then we've also looked at for the operator space, just how those spaces work for the operator. So starting to look at the locker rooms, the gym uses, some of the kitchen areas for the operators as they come in before and after their routes, or or dwell in the space between their routes, how that space could best suit them. The overall layout of the building is coming from the parking field, which would be at the top of this drawing, into the entry. You'll see in a block diagram here in a moment that this main stairway is a glass frontage, so really this central lobby really opens up. The main restrooms for the building overall are on the operator's side, but can be accessed directly from the lobby area by both LAFTA staff as well as the public as they enter for boardroom activities or other uses at the project. If I move to the second floor, what you'll see in the operator space is a lot of dedicated training facilities, as well as some of the other pieces of training for them for video storage and their management operations. The operator side of the building does have a direct access stair between its two floors in order to allow the operator to generally remain on their side of the building. And then on the LAFTA side, a number of the private office locations, conference rooms, and other programming for the LAFTA staff. One comment we did get, we did receive 2 comments from committee members a few weeks ago. One was related to more open office area. This next slide does start to consider that. Admittedly, the last meeting was only 2 weeks ago, and so the team is just looking at how the programming could change. There are a lot of very specific uses in both spaces, either for training or for director level positions. However, there is opportunity to provide more open window area. I would say in office situations like this, what we're starting to see more of is opening the window line and then have offices more in the interior. And so this is a start to doing that and opening up really the entire eastern fascia of the building in that open office concept. We do plan, as we move into the SD phase, to look at this more to see if there's more potential, at least on the second floor, to open up more of the window line for open area uses, both cubicles, kitchen area seating, and so on. The other question in the committee member meetings was, how does this layout respond to the current COVID-19 issues in officing? I would say, based on conversation with our architects, and I should have noted Heller Manis is the architect as part of the Kimley Horn team on the office and operations building. And then also just speaking with some other consulting services staff, so certainly not all people that sit in offices, but private offices right now are the way that most businesses are seating as they re-enter their offices during the COVID-19 pandemic. Cubicles are a bit harder, especially for social distancing, and then just accessing those cubicles typically in open walkways. So private offices tend to be one of the first spaces best utilized in order to provide that social distancing. So the space currently would provide for a little bit of both of that response to COVID-19, as well as the open office space that was asked, the question that was asked at the committee level. The beginning of the architecture, a lot more interesting than looking at floor plans, I'm sure, and I will zoom in a little bit, understanding that the screen itself is probably quite small. So this is what an architect would start to call a blocking diagram. This would be from the northwest corner of the building, starting to be a 3D aerial image of that. What you're seeing is some architecture that starts to be speak to and be similar to the warehousing uses around them, but also adds additional interest. Obviously, with that central stairwell and glasswork, there's also a current proposal to have a skylight, lighted ceiling work, as you can see here. And then I think the other areas of interest will come through materials used. So probably a little more materials of interest, maybe even a little bit of wood or metal compared to what you're seeing on the adjacent warehousing facilities. Let me zoom back out, apologies. This is, so I'm actually going to skip a slide and come back. This is the same architecture blocking, but this is for the maintenance facility. What you would be looking at is the north face of the building. and looking at some of the maintenance doors, bays on the left side. You can start to see the numbering of those bays. And then more of the office uses, which would be on the right side or the western side of the building. We presented two options at the committee level. I think I would say that the committee preferred this option more, which really lighted the whole space with a similar top level glasswork or skylight feature, as you just saw, in the LAFTA Administrative Operations Building. And so I think that also helps the two buildings relate to one another. This would also very well lit the space. Remember, you have a mix of spaces here for both office, storage, as well as maintenance as well. I'll go back to the floor plan and zoom in a little bit because I understand this is probably quite tough to see. So starting on the left side of the building, I would just generalize that this is for the staff of the maintenance building. So this would be generally their office areas, lockers, showers, and restrooms. Storage of parts, electrical facilities, most of the areas to store what is needed for the buses themselves, additional storage. As you move to the, let me pan very well. As you move to the right side of the building, which would be the east part of the building, sorry, these are all the maintenance bays. And so the main issue, the main changes in the maintenance areas was the incorporation of our articulated bus bays, which was not in the previous set, and we're showing that as two bays on the northern part of the building, so bay 1 and 3, and then also incorporating SAV or non-revenue vehicle bays for maintenance here on the southeast corner of the building. Those are the main adds to the function of the maintenance facility itself. And then lastly, just again, covering the phasing, we have moved the project from where it left off in the 2008 through 2013 version. The package that you saw now is what we've been working on during the concept phase of the project, really trying to program both buildings and start to consider the architecture for them. FMG is the architect for the maintenance facility. We have done a site survey, so we are ready to jump right into design for the overall site. And we would be moving into the schematic phase with the goal of having a package available for a contractor to bid and then move into a design build phase after the SD package. With that, we are also, and Tone will talk about this, we will coordinate with CTE related to their zero emission bus study and how that would be incorporated in both the site and the buildings as we move into this next SD phase. With that, that's the conclusion of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, are there any questions?
I'll raise my hand. I do.
Carla.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for your presentation. Hopefully everyone can hear me. A question. I'm going through, sorry, I'm normally on the committee for projects and services, but I wasn't at that meeting that you just held recently. How many people are we talking about serving? Because LAFTA is about 15 right now. And if you add in the maintenance, would the drivers also be in this number? I'm just trying to get an idea of the scale. You have a common bathroom, so I'll add on to my question, and then I have one more later. You have a common bathroom, and people who do maintenance on buses, I assume it's similar to people who do maintenance on vehicles, and it can be kind of an industrial situation, but you're sharing bathrooms with people who are more of an office job. So I wonder if you could comment just about what you expect in those common areas, such as bathrooms.
Yes, thank you for your question, Director Brown. So the information we've received from LAFTA staff and Tone or Michael, if these numbers are slightly off, please let me know. But we would expect approximately 60 drivers, 10 administrators for that operator, and somewhere between 50 and 20 LAFTA staff at the time.
Mhm.
And at the facility at any kind of given time, certainly there would be more drivers and operators as the fleet increases, but that would be the number of on site at any time. I should have highlighted while it is, sorry, let me go to the, while it is a shared restroom from the lobby, I understand your comment. There is a separate, there are two separate unisex toilets within the LAFTA space, just currently on the ground floor level. Although I think you can see as we start to incorporate some of this open floor plan, there may be the potential to also move those up to the second floor level. So you have those same two one-person facilities on each level.
Okay, great. Thank you. That helps answer that. What about airflow? I'm surprised people brought up COVID in the subcommittee meeting because by the time this is constructed, we'll certainly be done with COVID, but who knows what else is coming along. When you look at a shared airflow system, is it one system for each section, floors? How does that work?
So thank you for your question, Director Brown. I think that right now we're determining that as part of the SD phase, both of the architects have a MEP sub-consultant on their teams. We'll meet whatever the building codes are at the time. I think what you're likely to see is probably two systems just because of how zones work in HVAC, as I've done office buildings. So this is about 24,000 square feet. I should have provided that in my presentation, excuse me. And so I do think you'll likely see two separate HVAC systems just on where the placement is. And if you think about the glass work for the building, this is really going to be kind of a sheer open area. So you'll likely see those HVAC systems stored on the back side, the southern face, behind each of the individual wings, for lack of a better term, of the building.
Okay, and then about solar panels and gold level, silver level, bronze level of environmental construction on the buildings. Can you offer anything on that?
Yes, Director Brown, we've talked initially with LAFTA staff about that. We would be looking at LEED silver is what we've discussed. From a solar standpoint, what we've started to talk about in the conceptual phase and will continue as we move into the SD phase is considering solar in the current paved area. Obviously that would mean a little bit of restriping. These are striped parking spaces overnight for the buses, so those are very easily accommodated to change. We have talked about if there was solar on the site that it would likely be an array of solar in this area, also providing some cover for the buses. The result of that is probably slightly fewer bus overnight spaces in that area just because of the columns to support that solar apparatus. And so you may have to relocate some of the bus storage on the southern exposure of the project behind the maintenance building.
Thank you. And this might be a question for our executive director, but right now we rent out some spaces to Google and some other commercial bus systems. Will we still be able to accommodate that with the new development, or will that be set aside now? Michael?
You know, we do lease a portion of the space. If I'm not mistaken, Tone, correct me if I'm wrong, but this has space for about 108 buses, which is about double the fleet size that we have now. So I think for the foreseeable future, till you're really in the outward years of this, space, I think we could continue to lease some space.
It sounds like you would have plenty of capacity to lease space, as well as to put in the solar panels that Mike was referring to. If the pillars that support the solar panels take up some footprint, then you'd still have capacity. So it sounds like a win-win. Okay, that was all my questions. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions?
And just one last comment about solar. We're also looking into installing solar, and can you zoom out this picture, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Also installing solar in the employee parking area in the front of the admin building.
Nice.
Any other questions? Okay, I have one just building on the airflow. And I think it's because of COVID and whatever else we might face in the future, it isn't just the number of zones, but it's actually the degree to which you bring in fresh air and don't let any disease build up over time. That's what I'm reading. So the question that I have for you is, when you come back with the design, can you explicitly discuss the airflow and what you're doing to make sure that we don't have a build of any kind of contaminants? That's my request.
Chairman Warner, thank you. I've taken the note, and we will do that when we come back to the committee and the board.
Okay, with this, I believe we need a resolution. Do I have a motion for such?
Well, before we get there, I have a slide that will address the comment from the committee meeting.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, can you pull up your presentation and pull the timeline? Or did you remove that from your presentation?
I have it in the presentation. I think Jennifer kicked me off of sharing, so let me just reshare. One moment. There it goes. And let me zoom out one level. So hopefully that's.
So another comment that was raised at the committee meeting was, are we acting prematurely with the Atlantis project? Are we, does it make sense for us to proceed with the design phase when we haven't decided on which fuel technology we're going to go with for the zero emission bus program? So can you zoom out a little bit, Mike? So what's in front of you is the overlapping timeline that shows the task and deliverable for the Atlantis transit facility, as well as the zero emission bus study. And this is our proposed schedule. So please let us know if this is too much and you want to scale back in terms of how often we're updating the committee and the board, or would you like to have more frequent updates at the committee and the board? So currently for the Atlantis project, we're wrapping up phase 1 of the conceptual design. And what we're asking for today is approval to proceed with phase 2 of the project. On the bottom is the ZEP study with CTE. Currently, we're in the second task, which is the required analysis and data collection. And the plan is, once they're completed with the analysis and finish performing the service and fuel assessment, we'll bring that item back to the committee in August to provide an update. And then again, once they're finished with the subsequent tasks, then we'll come back to the September committee and provide an update. The goal is by September, we believe that we'll have enough information to inform the committee and the board to help make a decision as to which fuel technology we would like to pursue for the zero emission regulation. Once we make a decision, then CTE will work with Kimley Horn to incorporate that into the design for the schematic design. And we'll take the draft schematic design to the full board in October as an update and for directions. And then comments received or requests received from that meeting will get incorporated into the finals schematic design, and we'll take that back to November for approval. And then on the zero emission bus study, the 2 key deliverables from that study is a development of the zero emission bus transition plan, as well as the car rollout plan. And that has to be approved by the board. So based on their timeline, we should have the report wrapped up by November, and we'll take it to the board for approval in December.
Any questions on the schedule? So your point is that by approving the resolution, we're explicitly incorporating acceptance of this timeline, correct?
Correct.
Okay. With that, do I have a resolution?
Bob, this is Jennifer. Carla has her hand raised.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm missing something, but do we have the finances for this? I mean, I wouldn't want to keep going forward. We did that in Pleasanton. We did a big plan for Civic Center and didn't have the money and didn't have the support. Michael, do we have the finances for this to move forward? I mean, your timeline is reasonable, but only if we can afford it.
Yeah, I think we're getting to a position where we could compete for discretionary funds either at the state, probably not for a while at the state, but certainly at the Fed level as they're talking about an infrastructure package. We do have a 20% match in reserves for this project in addition to your required reserves that you've set by policy. So we're in a really good position with the 20% match to go after funding for the project. We certainly wouldn't go beyond the 30% until we had identified the funding, because that next phase would be the design and the build. But it's also on the list that ACTC has as far as their 10-year capital projects that they're supporting. So we felt it was good to keep moving on the project and get it in a position should any of that stimulus infrastructure money be available for the project.
I wondered if maybe Supervisor Haggerty had any comments about ACTC and transit funds, taking into consideration COVID, and even LAFT has been doing a fare-free travel so that we haven't been collecting funds for fare box recovery. So will there be money in the future for projects like this?
Well, you're the one that knew when COVID is going to end. I don't even know that COVID is going to be over next year. So I don't know how I can
next year.
Money other than to tell you that, LAFTA got CARES money. ACTC is a defined project list. So you don't just add projects to ACTC, but I think it's very important that we're ready if the state comes up with some money or the feds come up with some money and say, who has a project ready to go, and then we're ready to go. So I think we need to go ahead full steam.
Great. So they're looking for shovel-ready projects, and this will help queue us up. Okay.
I don't know what they're looking for right now. I think they're looking for a vaccine, but I think that when things get to the point where, things get better. I mean, the state budget is horrible right now. The federal budget is horrible. The county budget is horrible. I don't know about your budget. But
horrible.
I still believe we need to be ready to move forward with the project.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
With that, I'll move the resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, who is the first and second?
Haggerty and Hernandez.
Great, okay, thank you. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, with that, roll call, please.
Scott Haggerty,
Aye.
Melissa Hernandez,
Yes.
David Hubbard,
Aye.
Tyler Brown,
Yes.
Jerry Penton,
Yes.
Bob Cooper,
Aye.
Bob Warner.
Yes. So we get to alternate the ayes and yeses. Okay, with that, we're on to item 7, modification 6 to contract with MTM for paratransit operation.
So that's also my item. Just a little background about the MTM contract. In 2014, LAFTA and MTM entered into an agreement for the management, maintenance, and operation of the paratransit services. The base term of the contract was for 3 years with 4 one-year option terms. We're currently in, we have exercised 3 of the 4-year option term to date, with the last one ended on June 30th. Staff is here today to request the board of directors to authorize the executive directors to execute modification number 6 with MTM to extend the current COVID payment and to exercise the last option term. However, instead of exercising the option term for 12 months, we would request that we extend it for only 6 months. Staff would like to use this time to issue a new solicitation. And the reason being is given that the current reduced trip volumes, staff believe this is an opportune time to go out for a new RFP because the potential disruption to the service will be minimized because of the fewer trips being scheduled. In terms of the payment agreement, Similar to the situation with MV, LAFTA has been supplementing MTM for the fixed costs since mid-March. And since the ridership is still floating around 33% of pre-COVID level, staff would like to request extending the payment agreement similar to MV on a month-to-month basis until ridership reaches 100% weekday trips or more, which is about 66% of the pre-COVID volume. If it does reach that level, then we revert back to the old pricing structure, which is a per trip basis rather than a fixed monthly fee plus the pass-through cost with the subcontractor. So that concludes my report. Welcome to answer any question you might have.
Are there any questions, Carla?
No.
Okay, any other? Time for a motion.
Move the item.
Second.
Okay, motion moved and seconded. With that, can we have any discussion on the motion? Okay, can we have a roll call?
John Haggerty,
Yes.
Melissa Hernandez,
Yes.
David Halbert,
Yes.
Kyla Brown,
Yes.
Jerry Penton,
Yes.
Bob Coomber,
Yes.
Bob Warner. Bob Warner.
I said aye.
Okay.
Got to vary it. Okay, with that, we're on to legislative update, item 8.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon, all. This item is a continuation of a discussion and action taken at the Finance and Administration Committee on June 23rd. The committee met then to get an update on recent legislative activities at the regional, state, and federal level. And the committee then approved one support position for consideration by the full board in accordance with LAFTA's adopted legislative program, which is the matter of HR 2, also known as the Invest in America Act, which was introduced in Congress early last month. And a lot has happened since the committee met. Just like when the committee met, I had a lot to report on what had happened the week before the committee met. So things are moving kind of quickly on transportation funding in Washington. And so I just wanted to bring the board up to speed relative to the committee's recommendation and what's been going on. So HR 2, this bill started life about a month ago as a proposal in the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee known as the Invest in America Act, which was to reauthorize the Federal Surface Transportation Program, currently known as the FAST Act, which expires on September 30th. So in addition to the usual public transit programs and other federal investments we would track closely in a reauthorization process, this bill also included another influx of emergency funding for public transit in the same vein as the CARES Act. So there was both a short-term funding sort of jolt in the arm for FY21, as well as a more comprehensive long-term spending plan over the 5 years from FY21 to FY25. So this certainly got our attention, and we brought it to the F&A committee to discuss. So we presented the bill and its considerations. The committee recommended a support position. And in the meantime, the House had also bundled in the surface transportation stuff with a whole bunch of other infrastructure proposals across a bunch of other sectors, turned into a big $1.5 trillion infrastructure package for the House to vote on. But still the Invest in America Act retains its identity as kind of a standalone title. And that's important in terms of, I think, where we see this process going next. So I just want to kind of differentiate what we're really talking about in terms of the federal legislative proposal we're talking about. You know, at the highest level, this would increase programmatic funding for public transit by 72% over FAST Act levels. So that's a pretty nice lift to consider over the next 5 years in the House plan. And so the committee did vote to refer a support position on HR 2 to the board for approval. Now, since the committee met, the House actually voted on HR2 and passed it. So where that leaves us now is probably the House is done with their work for now. Representative Swalwell signed on as a co-sponsor of the bill. So good work, F&A committee really got through there. So it's going to turn to the Senate. And if, everyone's on recess now, the Senate will probably return later this month to take up who knows what. The clock is still ticking on the federal surface transportation authorization that's currently in force, still expires September 30th. So there could be a situation where the Senate takes up some kind of a transportation bill when they return. And so staff's recommendation, or I think the committee's recommendation, is still that the board support the principles contained in HR2 as they relate to the public transportation principles, because these can still kind of exist as a standalone piece of legislation. And the Senate will probably come up with some kind of a proposal on their side, potentially reconcile a Senate and House bill. But so I just wanted to add that context of sort of where we are in the process now. If the board chooses to approve the committee's recommendation to support these legislative proposals, we would basically reach out then to our two senators and say, please support the House approved investment levels in public transit in, any transportation spending bills that may come forth. So that's kind of where we are now. Things are moving quickly. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions you have about the committee's recommendation or any of this latest information.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we need a resolution to approve.
I'll make a resolution to approve.
A motion, yes.
Motion.
Second.
A motion, yeah.
Okay. Okay, with that, any question, any discussion? Not, we'll do a roll call, please.
John Haggerty,
Yes.
Melissa Hernandez,
Yes.
David Hubbard,
Yes.
Carla Brown,
Yes, and great job, Jennifer.
Jerry Penton,
Yes.
Bob Coomber,
Yes.
Bob Warner. Thank you, Carla.
Okay, with that, we're on to item 9, resolution in support of application for FY 2021 funding through the State Transit Assistance State of Good Repair Program.
Yes, thank you. This one is my item as well. This item is a resolution enabling LAFTA to request an allocation for the State Transit Assistance State of Good Repair Program. We actually got a request for this resolution after the F&A committee met, and it couldn't wait until the board would come back in late August and early September, so it's coming to you now. This is just another one of our usual resolution is required to apply for this funding source. And the State of Good Repair Program is one of the new programs created by Senate Bill 1 when it passed in 2017. And so LAFTA gets an annual allocation that it can use for maintenance needs on an annual basis. We get the money, the revenues come from vehicle registration fees. So these aren't really as impacted in terms of revenue levels compared to other programs that are sales or use tax based. So there's kind of a similar amount this coming year as the previous year. But under the circumstances, staff is recommending that we use the funding to support preventive maintenance. And that basically maximizes our flexibility to use money for money that would normally be designated for capital expenditures for basically short-term operating needs under the auspices of preventive maintenance. So staff's recommendation is that the board approve resolution 22-2020 in support of an allocation request to MTC and Caltrans for the STA State of Good Repair Program. And with that, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions? Okay. Resolution?
So
Like to
moved.
make- I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Todd Haggerty,
Yes.
Melissa Hernandez,
Yes.
David Hubbard,
Yes.
Carla Brown,
Yes.
Jerry Penton,
Yes.
Bob Cooper,
Yes.
Bob Warner.
Yes. Okay, with that, we're on to item 10, resolution in support of participation in the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's Clipper Start pilot program.
There we go. Action. This is, as you said, a resolution in support of us participating in the MTC's Clipper Start program. That program is a program that provides discounted fares to low-income individuals. Low income being defined as 200% of the federal poverty level. And it's administered through Clipper. So it's an automatic deduction or an automatic discount that happens when the person taps their Clipper card on the vehicle. And originally, MTC was only going to have 5 agencies participate. They're set aside some CARES Act money for other agencies to participate if they so desired. And so this resolution authorizes us to participate in the program. It's an 18-month pilot program.
You're done. Any questions? Resolution?
So moved.
A second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Todd Haggerty,
Yes.
Melissa Hernandez,
Yes.
David Hubbard,
Yes.
Carla Brown,
Yes.
Jerry Penton,
Yes.
Bob Cooper,
Yes.
Bob Warner.
Yes. Okay, with that, do we have any matters initiated by the Board of Directors? Okay, I have one question with respect to the email that we got earlier. I'd like to ask Michael, what's your thought on how to respond to all of those suggestions?
You know, the email from Stephen I thought was well put together. I think there are some things in there that staff, as we looked at the letter, thought, you know, let's explore these. So I think Stephen and I have a video conference meeting set up for Thursday afternoon to just sit down and kind of work through his thoughts. And then I can work with staff on them. So I can bring back a report to the board at your future board meeting, but we're looking forward to meeting with Stephen on Thursday.
I don't know that we need to bring it back to the board, but if you could just give us a short, a note summarizing the status, that would be sufficient, I believe. Any other matters initiated? Okay, if not, I'd like to adjourn to the next meeting scheduled for August 3rd, 2020. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.